Man, there's a ton of football news. And I have to talk to my NFL insider, my Hall of Fame voter, Jason Cole. He joined here on the National Football Show. Do me a favor, Jace. Try to make sense of this Trey Lance trade and why now and how does this make sense for the Cowboys? And do you like it or not like it?
Well, if I'm Cowboys, I mean, it's a cheap way to pick up a guy who has some physical skill that I'll take a chance on. I don't really like the trade, and it has nothing to do with the Cowboys. It has everything to do with, there's no place for him to develop, especially on a team that's trying to win right now, right? So if you're the Cowboys, like, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me that you would do this at all, that you would think about taking this kind of player on at all, because where's he going to play? You know, the biggest problem that Trey Lance has is he threw 318 passes in college. And the last time that he played on a regular basis was 2019. Okay. He needs reps. I mean, he just needs to play. And as I wrote on for the 33rd team today, in a column I wrote for them, there's no developmental league in the NFL. There's no place for this kid. There's no place to go. And the other side of it, you know, when you look at this chart of guys who had less than 600 throws in college, the odds are stacked against them. Those guys they rarely pan out with any kind of real success. So it's okay from a physical talent standpoint. It's fine. They got an asset for cheap. Now what do you do? And there's not a lot of options.
How about this, Jace? What about the comments that Jerry Jones has where he's like, if Jalen Hurts had fallen to us, we would have taken him. And you're in the midst of paying a guy $50 million a year. What's the point of making that comment when you're trying to get the best? I mean, one thing I've learned this week, Jason, I've learned that Dak Prescott has more pressure on him than any athlete outside of LeBron James in American sports, because the owner, in my opinion, if Dak Prescott wants to win a Super Bowl, he's got to leave Dallas.
I don't know. I think the owner wants him to win a Super Bowl. I mean, I think the owner's trying to put the heat up on Dak to get him to win a Super Bowl and put the heat on Mike McCarthy to win a Super Bowl. This is his way of prodding them. He thinks, look, Jerry comes up with all sorts of answers depending on where you are, what time and space, to say, this is how we're going to do it. Like, I remember, what was it, like 10 or 15 years ago, he was like, we got to have exactly the same thing we had when we had Aikman, Irvin, and Smith. We need to have the triplets again. And he was like all about, like, let's recreate the triplets. Now it's about, let's put pressure on the quarterback. You know, it's whatever comes into his mind that he thinks is going to work to make them a Super Bowl contender. And I don't know if this is going to work or not. I mean, but I'll say this. I don't feel sorry for Dak Prescott. Like, go win. Like, that's your job.
Who do you think there's more pressure on in Dallas, Mike McCarthy or Dak?
Oh, they're both. I mean, look, Dak's the one who plays, so he's the one they're going to remember more, whether he wins or doesn't win. McCarthy has always been undermined by his boss, so he's considered a caddy or he's a card holder for Jerry, right? So I think McCarthy, there's a certain amount of people who understand how this really works, and McCarthy doesn't have that much impact. But Dak has the impact. Dak is the guy who has the ball in his hands. Dak is the guy who has to make plays. And unfortunately, I don't think he's much up for the task.
Let me throw this at you now in San Francisco. Boy, I got to tell you, Jason, as much as you like Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, and I love John Lynch, boy, I got to tell you, Kyle Shanahan was the guy that was the Pied Piper in this Trey Lance thing. And the amount of equity they gave up let me just say this. If I'm Jed York, I have to have a conversation about evaluating of quarterbacks. And some will go, well, they got Purdy. No, they got lucky with Purdy and landed on him with the last pick in the draft. That's not evaluation. That's like telling me that Belichick evaluated Brady as a great player in the 6th round. They landed on him, luckily. That's what that thing was. So if you're Jed York, how are you looking at both John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan having maybe the worst pick in NFL history because there were 3 ones involved with this?
Is that worse? I mean, I have to think about this for a little while.
3 ones.
I'd have to think about the picks were made for guys who were where you traded up. I mean, Jared Goff, the Rams cut him or traded him eventually. That was after giving him a second contract. So there's some out there. I get what you're saying, and you're not wrong. And yeah, there's a conversation to be had. How are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Why are we taking chances on quarterbacks with so little talent? And once that conversation's over, okay, what now? Are you going to fire Kyle Shanahan?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm asking.
Right, but I look. I get the question, right? It's a fair conversation to have, and I hear it a lot from 49ers fans. There are a lot of like, Kyle's just a quarterback killer, and he's this and he's that, and he's terrible, and get rid of him. It's like, you want to go back to Jim Tom Sula? Is that what you're really telling me?
No.
You want to go back to Chip Kelly? Especially Philly fans might, want to tell you a little bit about how that went, right?
Absolutely.
So I get it. Like, guys make mistakes on quarterbacks, and I always like to say this: Al Davis would be on the Mount Rushmore, not the Hall of Fame. Al Davis would be on the Mount Rushmore of people who helped create the NFL and make it what it is, and his football mind and his understanding of how the game worked. He took 3 quarterbacks in his career in the 1st round. Can you name them?
Todd Marinovich.
That's one.
Was it the kid from Illinois, the Purdue kid?
No.
Oh, he traded for George.
There's a number 1 overall pick in there that's not so good.
Jamarcus Russell?
Yeah, and the 3rd one is the best of them all and the most anonymous of them all, and you'd probably not get it unless you spend a lot of time. It's Mark Wilson. So one of the smartest men in the history of this game, smartest, no question about it, Al Davis, his 1st round picks as quarterbacks, Jamarcus Russell, Todd Marinovich, Mark Wilson. You can't flame out and fail any worse than that. As bad as the Trey Lance pick is for Kyle Shanahan, it's not worse than that combination. Let me tell you right now. Okay. So this is the hard part of picking quarterbacks. Now, they got lucky, with Brock Purdy, and they're coaching him really well, and they've recognized his talent, and they understand this is the system we have to build, and the system that we have to build for Brock Purdy does not work for Trey Lance. Therefore, we're moving on, right, and getting a quarterback who's more like Brock Purdy as the number 2, and that's Sam Darnold, right? So they're just moving on, and they've accepted their mistake, and they're living with it. This is still a damn good team. It's a hell of a roster, and they might end up in the Super Bowl if everything goes right.
Let me ask you something about Kansas City. Kansas City's saving so much money in their running back room and in their wide receivers. There's nobody really on that team. Why are they hesitating in signing Chris Jones, who's instrumental in a gigantic piece, if they want to go and win the Super Bowl? I mean, I get the number's $30 million. He wants to be paid more money than what Aaron Donald is being paid. But Jace, right. I mean, one more quarterback sign. If Burrow signed, do you know that Mahomes falls out of the top 10 highest paid quarterbacks in the league?
If they sign Burrow, they'll fix that. Don't worry about that.
No, but what I'm saying is, why are they late to the table when it comes to paying people? And you look at Travis Kelce. The guy in Philadelphia makes more than him, and the guy Waller.
Look. Here, let me just put it this way. There are 2 stories that I'll relate. One from Philadelphia that you'll remember. The Philly fans will certainly remember. T.O. holds out after the Super Bowl year You know, you go through all that shenanigans, and everybody's pissed at T.O. and that. And we are not going to pay him. We gave him a contract already that was great, better to die, and they were holding the line and all this other crap, right? Well, after they let him go and things went backwards, Andy once said in a private moment to some people, we probably just should have paid him. Okay? He had to live with that. The second part of this is there's a little hard-headedness there, okay, from previous experience, and that was their previous reaction was to not pay a player in an Andy Reid run organization. The second one is they got crosswise with Tyreek Hill last year when he was asking for a boatload of cash, and they said, we're just going to deal him, right? And we'll survive with what they have. And they not only survived, they thrived. They won a Super Bowl without Tyreek Hill, right? There are life experiences that they don't do this. And you and I would probably say, you know what? We're trying to win back-to-back Super Bowls. Pay the dude. They may be looking at it as, do you really want to pay a defensive tackle at the age of 29, coming into his 30-year-old year, and think that he's going to make it to age 33? Tough call, man. It's a really, really tough call. But I would probably pay him, and they're probably going to end up paying him.
It's a really great look at that because you're right. I mean, a defensive tackle, $30 million, man. And, I got to address my quarterback and tight end still. And I've got to maybe find another wideout for the kid. I mean, if Kansas City loses Mahomes for any length of period, that's a 5-win team. There's nothing on that offense. They'll
probably
Bortles and who?
They'll probably fake it. Well, they'll fake it to like 8 wins because Andy's that good a coach. But you're right. I mean, they're 500. They're an also ran. They're not a playoff team, right? We all recognize that. They got, this is all about resource allocation. They paid a lot to guys like Tooney. They've paid a lot of money to upgrade their offensive line. They've had to make choices. They're in a stare down with Chris Jones. And normally, if players are willing to go through the pain that comes with sitting out, like getting ripped, having fans on their case, all that kind of stuff. If the player is willing to do that, the player usually ends up getting the money that they want. The player just has to have the stones to withstand the criticism that they're about to receive.
Final question for you. In your opinion, as we get ready for the start of the season, who do you believe will take their team further, Burrow or Josh Allen this coming year?
Burrow. Burrow's more consistent. If I'm betting, I like the more consistent player. Allen's great, but
he was 13-3 last year, Jace.
Yeah, he was terrific. Okay, but I mean, there are things that Josh Allen does that bother me. He runs too much. Okay,
the dropping of the ball against Minnesota, which we would have gave him home field advantage. If he doesn't put the ball on the ground with the minute left in the game, they win that game. They win 14 and they go 14-3.
Look, I like Josh Allen. If we had to pick up sides, and I ended up with Josh Allen, give it to me. I love it. But if you're asking me, I got to pick between Josh Allen and Joe Burrow, I'm taking Joe Burrow. I just think he's a better player.
Why do you think they haven't done his contract yet?
Oh, it's the Bengals. Who knows?
I forgot there's a zipper on that question.
Right. Look, you're always when you go to ask these kinds of questions, you have to understand the people who are involved, right? And that comes to the ownership, that comes to the agent. I remember Marvin Demoff once told me a great story about how he went to Joe Robbie when Joe Robbie was still the owner of the Dolphins before he passed away and said, hey, we'd like to really redo Marino's contract, get this done now. It'll, something that'll be more acceptable for you, blah, 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 right? And this is before the cap. And Robbie was like, I'm not doing that contract. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. And it went on for the better part of 2 years. Finally, Robbie came to the table and said, okay, I'll do it. And it was for more money than Demoff was asking for at the beginning. A lot more money because the price of poker had gone up. And Demoff said, look, with some people, you can't do a deal until they're ready to do a deal. And that's just how it works.
I get you. I got to sneak one more in on you. You think Wentz is on a football team before the start of the season?
No, it's going to take a couple of injuries.
Why do you think he's not on a team? He's not horrible, man.
No, but he's uncoachable right now. He's
Wow.
been uncoachable. He's been uncoachable for about 3 years now.
Wow.
He's too full of himself. He's one of those guys who's going to have to hit rock bottom and say, you know what? I got to start listening to other people.
So you think it's more that organizations would have to put more of an investment of time in, and they're not willing to right now because of where we are in September now almost?
Well, yeah. He's been a head case. Well, number one, he's got a ton of money, so why does he need to play, right? Unless he wants to do it. So he's going to have to love it. Number two, he's been a head case ever since that Eagles Super Bowl, that first Super Bowl, right? You know, with Nick Foles. Like, he's just been that way. And so, you know, he felt undermined in he got too many complicated thoughts going in his head instead of just like, hey, go play football. You know, he got worried about who were people respecting and not respecting and da-da-da-da-da. It's like, look, dude, you're better than Nick Foles. Stop it. Okay? But the worst thing is, with some athletes, man, it's the old saying, baby, you think too much, man. Like,
I was just going to tell you, Jace, man, when you're a quarterback like that and you got the money in the bank and they sign you to that giant contract, you got to just do this, whatever. You know what I'm saying? You just got to have a whatever. You can't be doing this. Hey, I kind of really glad that we won the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? That's the kind of attitude it was. Hey, I'm kind of glad we won the Super Bowl. You know what
Yeah, no, you got to be into it. And you got to be there. Like, this is great, and I'm going to come back because I know what the expectation is and all that. Or you got to have thick skin. And this is the one thing we talked about Eli Manning before. And, how uneven his career has been and the record and all this. I will say one thing. He handled New York better than 99.9% of all human beings because nothing ever bothered him. And there's something to that.
I think he handled New York better than Lawrence Taylor did.
Oh, absolutely. Lawrence Taylor was a problem in New York. Now, he won, but, he probably wasted, 40% of his career?
Oh, I mean,
easily.
Easily could have.
He snorted it up his nose. It was just, it was brutal.
I mean, if you're talking about a Hall of Fame player, and then you're talking about a guy who was this close to destroying and having a Mike Tyson type career, he was this close to being Mike Tyson, where, if it wasn't for his God gifts and his ability, he's like this close to just,
right.
Fading away.
Right. But the other side of that is Eli Manning.
Yeah.
Say whatever you want. I'm going to be here and I'm going to win a couple of Super Bowls, and it may not always look pretty, and you may bitch and complain and all that crap. Whatever. I'll be ready.
Absolutely, Jason. He won 2 Super Bowls too, the same as many as Lawrence Taylor did. Jace, I appreciate it, my friend. Thank you very much. Thank you again. We appreciate Jason Cole for coming aboard with us. We thank him again. Hey, don't forget, our 40th anniversary with Hooters is going to be incredible. By the way, next week, we are going to be giving away some great gift certificates for some of you guys out there. We're going to give you more details on that next week. Do me a favor, log on to northeasthooters.com to find one of the 7 locations nearest you on where you can use these great gift certificates. We're going to start this next week, the start of the NFL season. We can't wait. We're going to be doing so much with our friends at King of Prussia Hooters. We can't wait to see all you. The iconic Hooter girls are going to be there to serve you. Tuesdays, buy 10 wings, get 10 boneless free. Wing Wednesdays, a 40-year tradition, 1983. That's all you pay there. All you can eat. That's right, man. And then kids eat for free on Saturdays. 6 items, $6. Simple as that. Hooters 40th anniversary. I mean, we're so proud to be a part of it. And the National Football Show is the official home of Hooters in the Philadelphia area. All 7 locations, northeasthooters.com. Find that location nearest you. When you go to Hooters, do me a favor. Tell them Big Sills sent you.